Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Massive marches held across the world to commemorate Jerusalem Day as thousands of Palestinians are prevented entry into the city on the last Friday of Ramadan. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
Our top story for this hour, designated by the founder of the Islamic Revolution back in 1979, the last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan, marks the International Al-Quds Day. To honor the day, millions of Iranians have taken to the streets nationwide to support the Palestinian cause. Press TV's Salman Kujuri reports.
Millions of Iranians across the country took part in rallies marking the International Al-Quds Day. Chanting such slogans as "Down with Israel, down with the US," people from different walks of life once again got together to voice support for Palestinians and express their hatred toward the expansionist policies of Israel.
We have come to the streets to show the world that we will not leave the Palestinians alone, and we will defend the rights of the oppressed nations around the world.
Issuing a resolution, the demonstrators denounced Israel's atrocities against the Palestinian people and called for the liberation of Palestine. The protesters also condemned the violent crackdown against opposition protesters in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Quds Day this year is observed at a time when the Western governments, especially the US, are grappling with serious economic problems. The world is fed up with the tyrannies of the US, Britain and the Zionist regime, which are the most hated on the face of the earth. Such rallies show the depth of the public hatred towards US and Israel.
Well, people in other countries have also held mass rallies to commemorate the International Al-Quds Day. Demonstrators took to the streets in Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, and others to show solidarity with the Palestinian people. They condemned what they called Israel's crimes against Palestinians. A similar rally was also held in the besieged Gaza Strip in commemoration of the day.
In Indian-controlled Kashmir, thousands of people took to streets in support of Palestinian cause. People from all walks of life expressed solidarity with the oppressed nation to remind the world community of the occupation of the Palestinian territories by Israel.
Today we are protesting and showing solidarity with the oppressed people of Palestine and with the people of Kashmir, and all the oppressors who are oppressed are showing solidarity with them.
Al-Quds Day is observed every year in most countries on last Friday of the holy month of Ramadan. The idea of Al-Quds Day was initiated by the late leader of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, in support of the Palestinians.
Well, the Lebanese have also taken part in the Al-Quds Day rallies. Hezbollah's leader addressed the Lebanese protesters who'd gathered in the southern region of Marun al-Ras. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah said Palestine and Al-Quds are parts of the Islamic religion. He called for the formation of an independent Palestinian state on the whole of Palestinian lands.
Any Palestinian entity or any Palestinian state, such a state must not be on account of the rest of Palestine or the rest of the Palestinian territories or the Palestinian soil or Palestinian people. Our real aspiration, our real hope, all of us, is that the day will come whereby the Palestinian state will be established, an independent Palestinian state on all Palestinian territories from the river to the sea. And this Palestinian state, God willing, will be established.
Well, in the Egyptian capital, Cairo, protesters have staged a massive anti-Israel protest rally. Egyptians demanded an end to their country's peace accord with Israel. They also repeated their calls for the expulsion of the Israeli envoy. Rallies with a similar message have also been held in Alexandria. This following the Tel Aviv's killing of several Egyptian security forces near Eilat last week. The incident has sparked angry protests in Egypt. Well, for a clearer picture of what's going on in Egypt, we will be joined by Karim Gamaluddin, Press TV's correspondent, later on in the program. But for now, continuing with the news, anti-Israel demonstrations have been held in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, and neighboring Bahrain to mark International Al-Quds Day. In Yemen, protesters set an Israeli flag on fire in the capital, Sana'a, to condemn Tel Aviv's ongoing aggression against Palestinians. Similar protests were held in other Yemeni cities. In Saudi Arabia, angry protesters chanted anti-Israeli slogans in the towns of Awamiya and Qatif. The demonstrators denounced their country's involvement in the military crackdown on opposition protesters in neighboring Bahrain. And in Bahrain's town of Malakiya, protesters came out to commemorate Al-Quds Day and burnt an Israeli flag to symbolize the Palestinian resistance. The Bahraini demonstrators called for an end to Israeli crimes against Palestinians.
The Palestinians in the Gaza Strip marked International Quds Day by staging mass rallies on city streets. Participants called on the Arabs and Muslims to bear their responsibility by countering the Israeli occupation and its campaign to Judaize the Holy City. They also called on the international community to refrain from supporting the Israeli entity at the expense of Palestinian rights.
Marking International Quds Day, and with the participation of all national and Islamic factions, the Palestinians took to the streets of Gaza in mass rallies. They chanted slogans denouncing all forms of Israeli aggression and reaffirmed their rights in Palestine, most notably in Jerusalem. The Hamas movement called on the Arab and Muslim worlds to bear their responsibility toward the Holy City, which is facing grave danger.
We say to our Arab and Muslim worlds, Jerusalem is in danger. You must bear your responsibility towards Jerusalem and Palestine, which is the fundamental issue for the Arab and Muslim worlds. In the name of the resistance factions and in the name of the Palestinian people, we would like to reaffirm our commitment to our national principles, most notably Jerusalem.
For its part, Islamic Jihad called on the Arabs and Muslims to mobilize and unify their efforts in order to defeat the Israeli occupation and expel it from the Palestinian land.
The Arab and Muslim nations must mobilize their forces and unify their efforts in order to achieve their goals and uproot this foreign seed planted amidst them. The presence of this entity here is illegitimate and will remain as such until it's uprooted, God willing.
The Democratic Front said International Quds Day has become an occasion to renew all forms of struggle against the Israeli entity. They also called on the international community to bear its responsibility toward the Palestinians and urged it not to take the side of the Israeli occupation. International Quds Day will continue to sound the alarm bell, warning all Muslims of the Israeli threats facing the city of Jerusalem and its holy shrines. It's a day to call on them to unite and assume their responsibility towards Jerusalem by liberating it from the oppression and from the Israeli occupation's fist. Mustafa Abdahadi, Al-Alam, Gaza, Palestine.
In occupied Palestine, Israeli occupation authorities imposed a tight curfew on the holy city of Jerusalem. They also set up checkpoints and closed the streets leading to the holy Al-Aqsa Mosque in order to prevent Palestinians from entering the mosque to perform the last Friday prayer of Ramadan.
The International Al-Quds, or Jerusalem Day, in support of Jerusalem and its liberation from the Israeli occupation, comes this year as the Islamic awakening continues to gain momentum in the fight against oppression, weakness, and tyranny. The occupation's authorities impose strict measures in the Holy City to prevent worshippers from entering the Aqsa Mosque, to perform the last Friday prayer of Ramadan, and mark the International Al-Quds Day.
There were too many checkpoints in the West Bank. They only allowed entry to people of specific ages, and this caused problems. Checkpoints were packed with people waiting to enter. Unfortunately, the ban is affecting many people.
Yes, there were checkpoints and a ban in effect. We crossed 5 checkpoints on the way here. All young residents were denied entry. It wasn't easy.
المواطنون الفلسطينيون الذين استطاعوا الوصول إلى المدينة المقدسة سواء من الضفة الغربية أو من الداخل.
The Palestinian residents who were able to enter the Holy City, whether from the West Bank or inside Palestine, stressed the importance of marking the International Quds Day. They called on the Arab and Muslim nations to withstand all hardship and head to the Holy City and its sacred mosque.
They prevented many people from entering. They're being very strict. They're giving the Muslims a hard time. All the streets were cordoned off. They also closed the border crossing.
Wake up, Arabs. Wake up. Wake up. Stop being passive. Wake up.
On this last Friday of the Holy Month, the Holy City is calling for help, hoping someone will finally respond and free it from the occupation, which has been disrupting its sacred mosque for decades, which is known to Muslims as their first Qibla. Despite the Israeli occupation's strict measures, which include imposing curfew and banning thousands of Palestinians from entering the city of Jerusalem, thousands of others entered the city to perform the last Friday prayer of Ramadan and mark the International Quds Day. Khader Shaheen, Al-Alam, Occupied Jerusalem.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs which connect you to the world.